We have a quorum with Councilmember Davis, Camus, Arenas, and myself. And we'll start with a review, the final agenda for December 3rd. There's no class on November 26th. All right. We'll start with, I don't believe we have any ads, do we, Tony?
No, we just had a language change on 3.3 to clarify the term ends 2020, not 2023.
Okay.
It's a separate handout.
Okay, we'll come to that in just a second.
It's 2020.
So we'll start on
It's an
pages
unexpired term.
4 and 5. Pages 6 and 7. Pages 8 and 9. Pages 10 and 11.
And so that's the item 3.3. The term should end November 30th, 2020, because he's being appointed to an unexpired term.
Okay. So that'll be changed in the agenda with the motion. Pages 12 and 13.
Mayor, I again have to recuse myself from item 3.8,
Okay.
but I also had a question on whether it's going to be in the evening or if it's going to be on the regular day agenda.
Well, that's a question for the council. My understanding is all the evening items are going to be moved to the day. So my understanding is that that was also going to be the suggestion to move this item to the day.
Yeah, the public hearing's concluded, so.
Correct. And that was what was noticed in the evening?
Yeah.
So the continuation can continue evening or the afternoon.
Okay.
So I suggest maybe just stay there in the afternoon. That'd be great. Pages 14 and 15. Pages 16 and 17. Pages 18 and 19. Okay, and page 20. All right, Mr. Beekman?
Thank you.
Hi. I just, for this one, I wanted to quickly offer, for 2.8 and 2.9 is agreements between airport bus service of San Jose and VTA, and the next item, 2.9, is modular video detection systems, a purchase order for. They may or may not be connected, but I just wanted to bring up the ideas of data collection and policy, good policy making for data and surveillance and technology. The VTA has, I've been noticing, they've been working diligently to make better practices with their privacy policies, with their public policies about how the public can understand what is their technology and surveillance. And it's been really interesting, and it's been an interesting development and growth to watch. And so I'm happy about it, and I just wanted to mention that to you here as just a reminder of what we can work on here in San Jose. And, they're just slowly plodding along to try. I mean, they're not perfect, I guess, but you can feel that they're making the effort, and it's nice to feel. And I don't feel that here in San Jose, and I want to learn how to do that more and how I can feel that more with San Jose being the big city that it is. There's hustle and bustle, and that's an important concept. 50 people doing 50 things at once, and it's how to unify that, as I'm interested in right now, on what can be, good and decent, and we can all agree upon. So good luck in your efforts, and good luck to positiveness. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Mayor, if I could just note on the agenda, make sure, in case you didn't pick up on it, so the land use items are only consent items.
Yeah,
We're showing that they would be heard right after consent in the afternoon. So we're not showing for a need for an evening session, recognizing that this afternoon agenda will probably bleed into the evening, but we won't have a separate evening session.
right. Okay. That's okay with the committee?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Make a motion to accept the agenda
With the replacement for 2.3.
with the replacement for 3.3.
Second.
It's motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We're on to item E, which is the public record.
Motion and note and file.
Second.
Mr. Beekman.
I should have I have a long speech about this. For this item, I really wanted to talk about the Metro article that talked about Vision Zero. From this, to comment on it, the current 20 to 30 police we now have in San Jose to work on traffic enforcement is going to be upgraded to 50 very soon. It's just been approved. It is these good ideas of civil practices that this should really be enough in police force to cover this. I also hope this article is not meant as an attempt to eventually ask for more technology, data collection, and surveillance. It is if it is, please remember, this is not 2005. We are learning to leave an era of 9/11 war and shock and awe. This is a time to begin to consider good technology policies and guidelines. There are ideas of openness and sharing, of peace, better democracy, and sustainability. They create good community practices and a better organization of how to more safely understand technology future that can be fearful for all of us. I wanted to thank everyone of the community that I feel a patience is beginning to take place in the auto issues. If it is any consolation, the traffic in San Jose naturally feels slower than in places like Fremont. And I'm hoping that everyone can understand that the deep intentions of Vision Zero is that we have to consider in practical, decent, good terms, we are coming to an end of U.S. frack gas and the use of fossil fuels for automobiles. Thank you again for this good work and this patience of the community. And finally, with a few traffic signal timing adjustments approved yesterday, please consider the devices monitoring signal changes make very good auxiliary uses of tech surveillance. Please consider open policy and accountability practices and ideas of good minimal use and needed good minimal use practices as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so there's a motion on item E. I just wanted to make note of, appear to be some form letters from various citizens asserting that there's a court order for FCC to comply with environmental review before installation of any 5G small cells. And it would be helpful, given obviously the public interest in this, if the city attorney was able to inform the council at some point, perhaps in closed session.
We'll look at that and get back to the council.
Great. Thank you, Ed. All right, on the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? That passes. Okay, on to,
I think there's no consent calendar. We have to pull off
yeah,
A.
we we have an item G1A that was on consent that I believe should be heard.
Correct.
So, Councilman Camps, I'll take that as you pulling that item off.
Yes, that was my intent.
This is Regional Countywide Planning Collaborative Resolution. Rania is here from Vice Mayor Jones's office. Did you want to say anything, Rania, on this item? Welcome.
Good afternoon. Unfortunately, Vice Mayor Jones could not be here today. He's at the NLC Summit, but just wanted to kind of give you a brief overview about the purpose of this recommendation. As you may know, there has been a multi-year effort in considering forming a RENA subregion for the next cycle and as part of the housing element. This was something that has been led by the Cities Association, and San Jose Council actually considered this recommendation and approved a council earlier this year to basically to continue to consider the recommendation to form a arena subregion. However, this year, due to changes in state statute, the recommendation is now not to form arena subregion, but to form a planning collaborative instead. And the reason for that is we were considering arena subregion on the condition that we could use a BAGS methodology. According to changes in state statute, that is no longer possible, and that we would have to form our own methodology. And so this is a much more heavier lift, requires more staff time and higher costs. In addition, it is anticipated that allocations will be much higher with this upcoming cycle, about 50% to 200% higher, based on allocations for other regions in the state. And so this would actually limit the desire for any city to really take on additional numbers. And then in addition, there's also going to be increased oversight by HCD during this process, and a requirement to further state objectives and comply with fair housing. And so because of these reasons, Cities Association has recommended to form a planning collaborative instead, because really the main benefit of the subregion was to bring cities together and to be able to collaborate and plan for housing as a region instead of in silo. And so if we were to form a planning collaborative, we would still be able to achieve that objective, however, without the trading of allotments. And so the recommendation is now to participate in the collaborative and to adopt the attached resolution, attachment B, and to basically authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Cities Association. This planning collaborative would be facilitated by a consultant who would develop resources and tools and would really allow cities to share best practices.
Great.
So-
Thanks, Rania. Dave, does this require any workload assessment?
I don't think it does, as I'm understanding it. Mike and Ben are shaking their head no. So
Okay.
I don't think, I think the council adopts a resolution, there's a small financial contribution that we need
Right.
to make, and we kind of continue the collaborative work that we've been doing.
Okay. I know that sometimes in the past that other partners of ours in the region look to us as the big city with the larger planning department and et cetera. So I assume that, you know, if that becomes the case here, then we'll be taking it back to council to figure out
Fair
resources.
enough.
Yeah.
It hasn't been the case on the RENA
Okay.
sub-region work as far as I know.
Great.
So,
Okay.
so this will go to council?
But it's on December 3rd.
Okay.
Okay, great. Any questions? Comments? Councilman Reyes?
So will the additional work be just on Vice Mayor's office?
That's my understanding. I don't mind having Mike come up. I think Mike has been attending the arena sub-region process. Your choice.
Yeah, so it won't be really a lot of work. We're actually kind of already doing this work already in that we have what's called a SCAPO meeting, which is essentially a meeting of all the planning directors and top planning staff in the cities in Santa Clara County, and they're working through a lot of these issues now. So this would be kind of expanding the opportunity to work collectively on housing issues in the region. So it's just kind of expanding and providing more resources to do the work that we're actually already doing.
Got it. Okay, thank you. so
Sure.
much, Mike.
All right, any other questions? All right, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, I'll take that as a passage. Loosely interpreted. All right, G2 is a waiver of revolving door restrictions. And Carrie Kazantzis is here. And I guess, Ed, any guidance you want to offer us with regard to this item?
Sure. I think in the past, the council has looked at this particular municipal code requirement. Whenever we have a former employee who goes out and works for an entity that may be coming before the council we have to look at the revolving door ordinance to determine whether or not he or she can do so. In general, the former employee is prohibited for at least 2 years from coming before the council or a committee to lobby or make representations. There are a couple of exceptions. People can go to government agencies, they can go to nonprofits, certain nonprofits, and also the council has the ability to waive the prohibition if it's determined that it's in the best interest of the city to allow that person to come before the council. The exception with regard to nonprofits has a caveat to it. It has to be a nonprofit that has had financial or other support from the city. So it's not all nonprofits are automatically exempt. So that's why the particular applicant is here. She is working for a nonprofit, but the nonprofit that she's working for has not received city support within the last 5 years.
So can I just
So-
offer, this is very ironic, isn't it?
It is
This
very
a nonprofit
ironic.
that hasn't gotten a dime from us.
My understanding is that we are going to come forward, is that correct, City Clerk, with a modification to the revolving door?
We do have revolving door modifications coming from BFCPP. I think we're scheduling it for January.
Okay,
To determine how to deal with this very unique nonprofit exemption. So, having
Okay.
said that, that's what the Muni Code says.
Right, right.
So,
Okay.
so that's why the applicant is here.
Right.
And she did attach a letter where she proposes to fall under the general exemption because it would be in the best interest. And so the Rules Committee would need to look at that, make findings in order to send it to the full council, and the council would have to agree with your finding that it's in the public interest to allow her to have an exemption under the revolving door.
okay. Well, I guess obviously I have a bias in this, since Kira and I used to work together, but this seems completely within the spirit of the law, that someone who's working for a nonprofit that has not received any money from the city should be able to have a waiver. And I would also support a change in the rules to ensure that nonprofits that don't receive money are treated just as well as nonprofits that have received money.
I don't know who she is, so I don't know if she's here.
She is here, yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so just letting you know in case you
Yeah.
ask questions.
Yeah, so if anyone would like to ask your question, certainly.
I don't have a question for Kira, but I do have a question. Shouldn't it be the other way around?
Yes.
The nonprofits who haven't
Yes,
received
yes.
money from
So
the city
we
come
went back
before
and we
the
tried to
city?
understand why this was done this way. My
seems backwards.
understanding that, and based on the information we received from the memos that went back to Councilmember Pandori, who was the one who pushed this forward, was that in order to determine whether or not nonprofits should get the exemption, they determined that if the city was willing to provide financial assistance in one way or the other, they had made a determination that this nonprofit was different than other nonprofits who didn't receive assistance. That was our understanding based on the memos we looked at from when it was created. So that's why it went to the Ethics Commission, is that they're called now?
Board of Fair Campaign and Political Practices.
Yes, for them to look at this and make a recommendation as to whether or not we should eliminate it entirely, whether we should eliminate part of this, or what we should do with it. So you will be seeing this coming back to you so that this
Okay.
council can modify it to the extent they feel it's necessary to modify it.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions?
We'll move to put this on the, is December 10th is the recommendation?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. And
Should be the opposite.
let that be a lesson to all of us, that eventually your memos will get read 30 years later.
Councilmember Pretori probably didn't even understand what he wrote.
Okay. That's a word of warning to all of us. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, Kira. Okay. On to item 3, which is the county implementation of Laura's Law and enhanced conservatorships. Councilmember Camus?
Yeah, I have to disclose that I inadvertently talked to an elected official who happened to, in his capacity as an elected official for another city, and he happened to be working for another council member, so I wanted to disclose a Brown Act violation.
Aha, okay. I think I know who that might be. All right. I assume that was Jim. No?
No.
Oh, all right, somebody else. Okay, fair enough. All right, we have a couple members of the community who'd like to speak. Mr. Beekman, and followed by Marilyn. Is there another one? Oh, I'm sorry, there is. Yeah.
Hi, this is like an important issue to me. This is really throwing me for a loop. You know, there's been quite a balance that we've been trying to work on, I know, for a few years with mental health issues and the like. And, you know, it's reached this point, and I don't want to so much debate it. I miss the old days, though, just to begin with. But this is where we're at now in talking about these things, and I want to learn how to work within what is being asked for. San Francisco has been pushing these sort of issues, and so it's really time I need to learn. I hope you can be patient in that I would like to have questions about this process. You mentioned, you know, in your letters and memos that you're fully willing to be able to make your own variations here and to ask the County of Santa Clara to make their own variations, and that's important to me. And just out of curiosity, the ideas of how long is a conservatorship for? Can there be an open-ended system to end the conservatorship process? Can that be an issue that can be considered an opening, safe place to, you know, civil rights that can be negotiated? And there's another issue that I'm interested in. I guess there's a few more issues. I guess that about covers it. I thank you for the idea of trying to be open and to make really important civil rights variations here in San Jose that don't have to, or in Santa Clara County, that don't have to necessarily, that can grow and learn from places like San Francisco, and I hope we can keep this very limited and minimal. Thank you.
Thank you. Marilyn Rogers, followed by Martin Fox.
Thank you. Usually I have such a loud voice, I don't want to overwhelm you here. I'm Marilyn Rogers. I also happen to be a registered nurse. This is an issue that I'm very concerned about in our community, and I'm so pleased that the previous speaker got up and cautioned us about conservatorships, and it shouldn't go on for a lifetime, et cetera, that kind of thing. However, I'm very supportive of what both Councilmember Camus and Perales have already initiated by a press release and letter going forward to enhance conservatorships within the County of Santa Clara. And to be quite frank with all of you, I'm embarrassed that Santa Clara County is one of the few, the only large county actually that hasn't already initiated this process. So we're kind of behind. That doesn't mean we can't go forward with this process and take some cautionary information as well. I do want to just read briefly some information here. Homeless individuals who lack capacity to provide their basic human needs because of severe mental illness cannot continue to fall victim to uninhabitable living conditions, drug and alcohol abuse, and risks of harm to themselves or others on the streets. Both Councilmember Camus and Perales have made comments regarding this. It is imperative our county make use of the benefits of Laura's Law and seeks permission to strengthen conservatorships in Santa Clara County. Councilmember Perales says, it's neither compassionate to those suffering on the streets or kind to our community or our hardworking public safety personnel to allow people to continue to cycle in and out of our jails only to be put out on the streets after a 72-51-50 hold. That's not adequate. 3 days obviously is not enough time to make any difference. Laura's Law was passed in California legislature in 2002 with the aim of remedying the issues posed by mentally ill individuals occupying our streets by introducing court-mandated assisted outpatient treatment, and also known as Laura's Law, including Bay Area counties of San Mateo. All the other counties in the Northern California have already implemented this. People worry, as I do, that it's a cost, but the cost per person is $1.82 and $2.52 per $1 invested in the program Laura's Law.
Thank you,
so it's
ma'am.
very financially cost effective.
Thank you,
And I
Marilyn.
hope this will go forward to the total council, because I think a lot of education
Thank
is
you.
needed. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fox?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of the committee and staff. Thank you for helping to close the loop of the Bay Area. Santa Clara County is the only county that doesn't have Laura's Law, and the mentally ill are mentally ill. They're not dumb. So Santa Clara County is undoubtedly experiencing an uptick in the number of mentally ill individuals seeking to avoid the civil court order associated with Laura's Law. This is the San Mateo County handout that I've provided to you. They're coming into your community. How do I know this? I have a family member who moved to Santa Clara County when the family member became subject to a domestic violence prevention order. And what your constituents, especially your elderly constituents, are facing is they're facing keeping their children at home or dialing 911 and taking a chance that one of your police officers is going to respond. And we know how that turned out in one case within your police department. So this is really an employee protection program, a police officer protection program, and it's putting mental health professionals in charge of dealing with mental health issues. And that misalignment occurred back in 1967 when the Lanterman-Petrie-Short Act occurred. This is a separate section of the Welfare and Institutions Code, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Campbell, do you want to say anything more?
Yes, I know that the county is going to be looking at this. Is this working?
Yeah.
Yeah. On the 17th of December, this is why it's important for us as a city to go, oh, there's one more public speaker.
Oh, forgive me. Thank you. Mr. Logan? Welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Scott Largent. I use a small GoPro that I've been using downtown for about a year. It's a GoPro session. And I go downtown and I listen for the screams. And I follow them. And what I do is I hold this little device off to my side like this. And then I'll go set it down near people that are severely mentally ill, that are just doing drugs, defecating, fighting, you know, it's just the most bizarre stuff in the world. I have about 3 terabytes of videos from downtown and up and down Santa Clara Street. I'm a recovering addict, a meth addict. I stayed away from dodging all this stuff for 3 years. And then I wanted to start filming it because that's all I hear. My appointments that I go to, my therapy appointments, my visitation to see my child, it's all up and down Santa Clara Street and the light rail. And it's hard to smell methamphetamines. It's hard to see them smoking it. I don't think my child's safe even going to the visitation spots. This is from a transient vampire biting me downtown. I mean, it is absolute chaos. These are all incident cards right here. I think the behavioral health system's an absolute failure. They don't show up. I hand these things out to businesses that know nothing about this list of all these numbers through our county. They don't know anything about it. And then I start calling these numbers. And I block my cell phone number. I use different voices so they don't get completely annoyed and know I'm calling all the time. They don't show up. The businesses are frustrated downtown. I go to each one of them and I talk to them about it. I wish the county showed up here. I wish they were here for this meeting right now. I wish you guys would show up for the county meetings. I just wonder why everybody's not getting on the same page. It's like 9/11 when we had the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA not talking to each other. This information, I'm not trying to make money off of it. You guys can have access to all this, and this can probably put 25% of the population down there on holds, on conservatorships. I'm not trying to make money off of it. You guys can have it.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Campbell?
Yes, and so this issue is you know, very important. The county's own reports show that 42% of our homeless population is mentally ill. This program's been in effect since 2002. And as you heard from the audience, this is the only county that has not implemented it locally. It is working for other counties like San Francisco. I know that they've had some success. This is an involuntary program. I know the county likes to mix up some of the wording. They do have assistant outpatient treatment that is voluntary. This is involuntary outpatient treatment. It requires conservatorship, whereas the county's current program does not require conservatorship and does not actually use the court system to help these people have the temporary 90-day conservatorship, which this program allots. That's why I like to use the word Laura's Law instead of assistant outpatient treatment, because the county is currently using assistant outpatient treatment, but it's voluntary. Again, this is an involuntary program. It's a method of basically forcing people to get help. And these are not people who will get help on their own. I need to stress that. Also, that it is temporary. It is 90 days, renewable for another 90 days, so this is not a permanent involuntary system. I wanted the city to take a position on this as an official body because our city experiences so much homelessness as a large percentage of the county population. And we as a city don't have the tools to help these folks without the county's help. And it is time for the county to implement this program, not just talk about it. They will be talking about it on December 17th. I'm hoping that our letter, which is the one that's signed by Councilmember Perales and I, will get the rest of the signatures of the city of San Jose. And also, it's been signed by other cities wanting to implement this program. And this is why I'm hoping that our council will consider a full recommendation at the next meeting.
Thank you, Councilmember. I'll support moving forward. I would offer just a couple thoughts in addition. One is that if we were to send a letter, and obviously this would need to go to council first, is that
Yes,
right?
yes.
I might suggest a slight variation of emphasis, that the emphasis would be on expanded conservatorship, including Laura's Law, because there are some considerable limitations around Laura's Law. The fact that it is outpatient, and there are certainly situations where inpatient is really required, particularly if someone is dual diagnosis and using a lot of methamphetamine, for example, and I'm not certain that outpatient is going to address the serious behavioral issues that are there. And secondly, because Laura's Law has a lot of procedural hurdles before you can even implement it. My understanding is even where it has been implemented, such as in San Francisco, it's a very small number of people. I know the county is looking at expanded conservatorship in particular, so I think emphasizing that may align a bit with their work plan. Laura's Law certainly should be one of those tools in the toolbox. So I just would throw that out as a suggestion as we think about how we move forward. I've had several conversations, particularly with Supervisor Simidian on this issue and Supervisor Chavez. It's fair to say there are different opinions, even in the county, about what exactly is the right approach. What is clear to me, and I certainly sense it's clear to Councilmember Camus from his remarks as well, is that we need to be much more assertive about the reality that we're facing out there, which is there are people who are hurting in a big way, and them continuing to be unaided in any way is not helping them any, and it's certainly not helping others. So I do think we do need some greater action. Now, I take Mr. Largent's points well, that there needs to be better communication, although I think each of us probably individually are probably talking to different electeds and staff over at the county at different times. And I would just ask Dave, do we have a scheduled time for our next city-county gathering?
We don't have a time scheduled. I
Yeah.
know there's work going on to
Okay.
sync up schedules or calendars for
Yeah,
that.
Certainly happy to raise it with Supervisor Simidian, but it seems to me that this is just one part of what we know is a larger challenge, as we know about all the challenges of homelessness and behavior that is related to somebody being out in the extremity, in the outdoors, exposed to an incredibly unsafe environment. And certainly mental illness is part of it. And I think we have to acknowledge methamphetamine use is a significant part of it too. And there is dual diagnosis, and these two factors do interact quite a bit. And I can recall in particular on NPR, it was just a couple months ago, the head of public health at San Francisco said, 80% of the behavior that we would see out on the street that we might perceive as being mental health related, that is somehow or another dangerous or worrisome in some way, is actually someone who may have a mental health episode but is actually also addicted to methamphetamine. And so it seems to me that I would be very interested in seeing how we could have a convening with the county board to talk about both issues. I know they're often intertwined, but the intersection of mental health and methamphetamine use is really critical, it seems to me, as we're seeing more and more behavior. And I'm seeing arrests now of people with no violent prior conduct who are committing very violent offenses because of extended methamphetamine use, because of the psychosis that results. And that is particularly worrisome to me. And so I'd like to see us take on this conversation more broadly with the county. I think this is a good first step. And I think we should also acknowledge in the letter that recently, in the last few weeks, I know the county has announced 3 separate programs, particularly around mental health and outreach. And I know that they're working on something related to conservatorship now. So there's no reason why this letter cannot be done in a spirit of prodding them along the path that they seem to be starting along now.
Yeah, and if I could just add, so we'll certainly work on that schedule. There's going to be another opportunity also for the county, for the council to, as we bring forward the Santa Clara County Plan to End Homeless update, that will be coming forward to the council in January, February timeframe. That draft is underway right now. Just reminding the Rules Committee that there's been a third pillar added to that, and that's around how we manage the issues of homelessness, including the issues of drug addiction, mental health, and illegal activities with the homeless community. So that draft plan is coming forward to the council for our endorsement, as it will be going to every single city in the county, and it's another opportunity for us to kind of weigh in and provide input.
Okay. Council members?
Yeah, Mayor, I welcome your additions. And in fact, I have been talking about this for the last 3 years. I've brought it up in the common meetings that we've had with the county over and over again. I think what I wanted to do is make a final push, because on December 17th, there's already a 17-page report that just came out today that I'm reading that talks about implementing Laura's Law, but I don't know if it's going to actually get done. So this letter should help, and I'm make a motion to approve going forward with a letter with the additions of, and I want it to be in the spirit of collaboration. The whole point is to help solve at least some of the hardest cases to solve. So I'll make a motion to include the mayor's comment in the drafting of a letter from our city to the county.
Second.
All right. Second. Councilmember Renz?
So will the letter be drafted after we have the discussion on December 10th? And this is just a beginning the discussion and including the points that the mayor mentioned.
I don't know, maybe would it help to have a draft for the council to look at?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would prefer to have a draft for the council to look at. I've included the draft that Councilmember Perales and I written as a background that you can use at your side, and if you make whatever changes that you need to it. And I'd love to have a draft already ready to go.
So that would be a jumping off point, is the letter
Yeah.
for the discussion. I'll keep my comments for that discussion, but I worked for drug court for a couple of years, especially with parents who were addicted to meth and had children under the age of 3. So I know that meth can really break up a family and just cause really long-term impacts, but I think there's also other drugs on the market that are just so new that, and, you know, this is like, this is a terrible drug, but there's a lot of new drugs that are prescription drugs, that are just these tailored drugs that we don't really know about very much, and I don't know that we want to be exclusive just to meth, but just be open about. I realize how the psychosis and the connection with meth, but I think there's a lot of other drugs that are triggering the same type of symptoms that emulate mental health issues. So I look forward to the discussion.
Yeah, a fair point, and Councilmember Reyes, maybe if I just suggest, I know that would be, for the separate discussion we might have with the county, perhaps we'd broaden it to stimulants. I think just that the class of drugs that's likely to, more likely result in some kind of violent behavior.
Stimulants, hallucinatory, yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. All right, on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We're on then to the Smart Cities and Service Improvement Committee, changes to the work plan. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Mr. Beekman?
I was hoping I could offer a few words on kind of like the business procurement process overall, and what its idealism can be with tech issues for the city. You might get tired of it. It's short, but hopefully it can be agreeable to you. In San Jose, civil protections and civil rights can work with your large corporate models, I feel, to offer peace, organization, and a decency that can be some of the most innovative ideas in tech these days. Openness and accountability does not have to be considered as a liability to commerce and tech inventiveness. At this time, possibly, we're at a time that we're starting. In San Jose, with a number of issues, it is time to consider that the ideas of peace, civil protection, civil rights, human rights, guidelines, and good dialogue are subjects that we all like to think about, and that we may be at a time that these ideas can be more friendly, open, and accessible to more people, and in how we plan to make decisions for a community. And to conclude, what should be expected when talking to people around the country and the world, or what people from around the country and around the world should expect when they talk to people in San Jose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're on to open forum. Mr. Largent? He's outside. Mr. Beekman, come on up.
Thank you. To conclude, Santa Clara County is going to have some difficult environmental planning and decision-making that will include public transit, automobile use, fracking, and fossil fuel questions into the 2020s. As we're all trying to live through world events and PG&E in 2019, I hope Santa Clara County decision-making will not have to be at the expense of allowing or forcing an economic recession disruption process and its undue hardship, pain, and suffering upon the rest of us. Please take note that for the past several years, realistic, sustainable guidelines and negotiation have been able to organize ideas of better reasoning, stability, and peace, and that can work to very much address world events and the actions of PG&E at this time. As an example of this good guideline process, the VTA has worked in the current number of days of ALPR data retention of 180 days within its new BART parking lot structures. This can be reduced to 90 days. And within a few years, this can be brought down to an important milestone goal of 45 days. This is exciting. There is a European and California state guidelines as we can all have a part in developing it and have a part in developing its oversight and accountability practices that respects everyday life, does not inhibit commerce, and asks what can be more organized and responsible decision-making of ourselves. It is the ideas of civil rights and civil protections on how to create sustainable open democracy, and meant to help transition out of the era of 9/11, continual war, and the use of shock and awe. Good luck. I'm excited about the guideline process and just the whole idea of good human rights that can be addressed in many issues in San Jose at this time. With my remaining time, I wanted to, hopefully I can clarify that it was a 90-day period was mentioned with the Laura's Law ideas in the previous item. If that means a conservatorship period of only 90 days, that is of interest to myself. I would like to talk more about this subject afterwards, and that's in the realm of how to talk about the conservatorship process that I would like to work. So thank you for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Larson?
Thank you, everyone. I normally don't write things down, but just like when I was in the electronics industry, about 2 or 3 years into my father's business, you kind of become an expert into it. It's family business, resistors, capacitors, diodes, all electromechanical board level components. And after my business went under and I got, I went through becoming a meth addict. I lived in a motorhome and everything went downhill. And the bizarre behavior was from the methamphetamines I was using. There's a difference between the biker meth and the stuff that's on our streets. And the chemicals that they're mixing in with the methamphetamines right now is pretty much stuff that's like chemicals that were in the 60s for Agent Orange. There's different chemicals that they're mixing. And this is starting to make people go absolutely crazy. And the ones that smoke it in the meth pipe, once they burn everything through there and there's a residue left, that remaining amount in there, when they're jonesing on it and they're hitting that thing, that's when they just spike through the roof and they go absolutely crazy. And the medical examiner, Dr. Jordan, is actually writing a report about this right now, several of them. And just some suggestions right here. I don't know if you know, in the new courthouse, right across from St. James Park, they put drug court on the 2nd floor. So you walk out from drug court, you're maybe 2-3 weeks sober, and you smell meth right across at the park right there. You see people doing drugs. You see people getting high. That needs to be back over at the Hall of Justice right there. The sobering station that we have next to the police department, they focused on alcohol for 3 years. They basically dug a hole in the wrong direction. They have now retooled that now to detox meth addicts. They were basically, per day, they were only having 1.5 people in there because it's not alcohol, it's meth. They had 20 beds in there. All this dough was going into that, and it wasn't working properly. I'm just saying, I've done the research for 3 years. You guys are more than welcome. I don't need any money for it. You guys can have all of the stuff I worked on. So
Thank you, sir. Meeting's adjourned.